Abraham Lincoln was born at a very young age in 1809. Only 9 years after his birth, his mother died of milk sickness. Abraham was mostly self-taught except for the about 12 months that he was taught by traveling teachers. In 1830, in fear of getting milk sickness, the Lincolns moved to Illinois in fear of suffering the same fate as their mother. During Abraham's inaugural address, he stated that he had no intent of abolishing slavery. However, on September 22nd, 1862, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, ending slavery in several states. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in 1865 by John Wilkes Booth in the Ford's Theater. He was taken across the street to Peterson House, where he remained in a coma for 9 hours and later died. Jason Mars visited this house and has some interesting stories of what it was like.
The house, it was all the original furnitures and furnishings and wallpaper and everything. I remember. I just remember how small the furniture was, the little beds. I know Lincoln's supposed to be tall, and I remember wondering how the heck he fit on that bed. Everything was just small, and it was just amazing how they kept everything original. We went last year in the fall time, I think it was in September. We went to the theater where he was killed, and toured some of it, and then across the street was the apartment that they took him after he got shot. And so we went over there and looked, just walked through the house and checked out all the furnishings, and it wasn't. I don't know if it's actually his house or if it's just a house they took him to, but it was interesting. I think anytime you tour these old museums where major events took place in history that you actually know of, it's just weird to think that happened in that building. Things that you've heard about ever since you were a kid, and it just really makes you feel like you're part of history when you walk through places like that.
This is all very interesting, but I've happened to secure an interview with one of the top historians that I know, who has some interesting stories that not everyone knows about Abraham Lincoln.
Well, Abraham Lincoln was, everybody thinks of him as the president, but he was also a pretty tough guy. Really strong. He used to walk around town carrying very, very heavy sacks, and he had once got into a disagreement with another gentleman, and the gentleman had challenged him to a duel. And in those days, the challengee got to pick the terms of the duel, and so Abraham Lincoln had devised a sword fight. And the rules of the sword fight was he made a circle and then put logs down the center of the circle, dividing it into two halves. And the sword fight was you had to stay in the circle and you had to stay on your side of the logs. And the gentleman that he was going to be dueling wasn't a very big man, and Abraham Lincoln was, as many people are aware, a very large man, very tall man, very lanky. So as they were preparing for the duel, Abraham Lincoln was kind of stretching out, and he walked over, and with his sword he was reaching way up into a tree and just cutting off the branches way up in the tree, demonstrating how far of a reach he was going to have with his sword. And the gentleman that had challenged him to the duel sat there and watched him do that, and then decided discretion was the better part of valor, and said, How about we let bygones be bygones and shake hands and just not do this? And Abraham Lincoln said, I think that's a good idea.
Oh. Isn't that fascinating? Now, he may know a lot about Abraham Lincoln, but I know of someone that knows a bit more. I was only able to get him in a video call, but here's the footage. Hello? Is it working? Hello, Grayson. My name is Abraham Lincoln, and I am the 16th President of the United States of America. I didn't think this would work, but please, do tell me, what day is it today? Well, it's same day but a different year. April 14th, 1865. Oh, that makes sense. But people say you're really tall, so how tall are you? Well, I'm not much taller than anyone else. I'm only 6 foot and 4 inches. Of course you are. But, Mr. President, or can I call you Abe?
Never call me that.
Why are you filming in portrait instead of landscape?
Well, that's how I lost my left pinky toe.
Well, I'm sure that was an interesting story. Well, I've noticed you look very young for your age. How do you manage that?
Well, I moisturize every day with some coconut oil, and I always make sure to stay away from tobacco and heroin. I also make sure that I keep my distance from my kids, who always stress me out and always all dying on me, except for my first one. He's been here for a while, and I'm proud of him for that. Now, of course, the death of my sons is quite the tragedy, and it's really given me the case of melancholia. But I think what you call that now is clinical depression.
That is quite the life story. But do you have any advice for our future presidents?
Well, please don't legalize slavery.
You predicted that the world would forget about the Gettysburg Address, but what if I told you that that just isn't the fact for today?
Well, I did predict that no one would know about it in the future, but if that isn't the case, then, well, I'll be darned.
Your wife cooks for you, but what is your favorite food?
Well, you're right, she does cook for me, but I do love a good imported oyster.
Tasty, but I must ask, why has your voice changed so much during this interview?
Oh, I'm just quite stressed about this play I'm going to. I just kind of don't got a good feeling about it. I'm also just kind of quite parched. My throat hasn't been feeling quite good lately.
And before you go, I just wanted to say, don't go to the theater. Well, that's a shame. Anyway, I hope you learned a lot about Abraham Lincoln, and that you can join us next episode to learn more about John F. Kennedy. Thanks for watching.